Back once again to take a look at a stack of albums. Today we're going to be looking at some more R&B, soul, funk music, all that. So let's get started. This is Isaac Hayes and his second album, Hot Buttered Soul. This came out in 1969 on Stax, and this is probably his best and most well-known album. What I like the most about this album is that it's just, it's got a real vibe to it. It's very immersive. Only 4 long songs. You have one song that's 5-6 minutes, one that's 8-9 minutes, one that's 12, and one that's almost 20 minutes long. So definitely a little bit different for this kind of music, and definitely a classic album. And speaking of Isaac Hayes, this is a 2-disc collection called the Love Collection, and it's what you would imagine. It's basically a collection of some of his most well-known love songs. This came out 1973, Stax. Let's move on to a record. This is Gregory Abbott, Shake You Down. So, I don't know much about Gregory Abbott, but I always think about working as a teenager at the local grocery store and just having the grocery store music on in the background, and they'd always play that well-known song, Shake You Down, and it was always just kind of funny, just being a goof and singing that song in the back, and just being silly, but it grew on me. And I bought this album on cassette back in college, and I don't know where that went, but I found this really cheap, like 10 years ago. And it's not just Shake You Down, it's I Got the Feeling, Say You Will, You're My Angel. You know what, the first side is perfect. Yeah, to be honest, the second side I haven't put on in a while, but I really like this album. Just look at this guy. Okay, let's look at some Commodores. This one's called Night Shift. This is without Lionel Richie. I don't know too much about the history of the Commodores in terms of the personnel, but Lionel Richie isn't on this one. And I always really like the song Night Shift. I think that's one of the best Commodore songs. And I got a bunch of Commodores records here, and these were actually, I always liked them, but when my grandmother passed away 10 years ago, let's say, I took her records, and she had quite a few Commodores albums. Commodores Natural High. You got Say Yeah, 3 Times a Lady on here. This is a self-titled album by the Commodores. You got Easy, Brick House, Zoom, lots of good ones on here. Commodores Midnight Magic. My favorite song on here has got to be Sail On. It's easy to forget about how many awesome songs the Commodores had. They're one of the best groups of all time, I'd say. Sade, Diamond Life. This is Sade's debut album. Smooth Operator, Your Love is King. That's one of my favorite songs ever. I Will Be Your Friend. Those are the highlights, but this album is a 9 out of 10 for me. This was 1984. Here's the second Sade album, Promise. I like it just as much. Sweetest Taboo is probably the biggest song on here, but an amazing song. And Never As Good As the First Time. go back to some CDs, and you know, gonna go back to some of these groups. Here is the Commodores, the Ultimate Collection. This was just something to put in the car with all the good songs on it. Machine Gun, Slippery When Wet, Sweet Love, Just to Be Close to You. The aforementioned songs from those albums we were looking at. I love it. Back to Sade, another case of just having a lot of her best songs represented on CD. Sade's last album came out like 15 years ago, and prior to that one, it had been many, many years. And the last one I wasn't so much into. It was fine, but a disappointment. I don't know if she's still making music or what. We look at a lot of collections from here on out. This is Marvin Gaye. What's Going On? Let's Get It On. Mercy, Mercy Me. The Gap Band. I actually got a bunch of Gap Band cassettes. I'm not sure where all my cassettes are. I hope to find those. I've been in this house for 15 years. Not the most organized person in the first place. I like to think they're around here somewhere. So, a very popular song, but my favorite song by the Gap Band's got to be Yearning for Your Love. There's also a song called Wednesday Lover on one of their later albums. That's probably my other favorite one. Looked at the Isley Brothers before, but here is another CD. Super hits. So two standouts on here are Who's That Lady? Everyone loves that song. Just the psychedelic guitar parts all over it. I love Ernie Isley's guitar playing. And Caravan of Love. It's kind of a corny song, but it's a good one. The Essential, Earth, Wind & Fire. What More Can You Say? Amazing group. My favorites are Devotion, Getaway, I mean, there's all like the really popular ones, but Let's Groove, that's another awesome one to me. That's how I first got into Earth, Wind & Fire. It was my first year of college, and I just threw on BET, and there was some award show, and Earth, Wind & Fire, or at least a couple members came out and performed Let's Groove, or that was part of a medley or something, but that song was a lot of fun, still is, and that's where I first became a fan. And I got to see them someday. They're one of those groups that, I mean, maybe I'm a little bit behind the times, maybe they've stopped recently because they got to be old now, but they were a group you'd see perform quite often at like casinos and stuff like that, like fairly cheap shows. So it'll be fun one day. The Best of Luther Vandross. I don't know if he's like my favorite, you know, R&B artist, but might have one of my favorite voices. And his vocal patterns, he was awesome. But The Glow of Love, Heaven Knows, those are probably my two favorite Luther Vandross songs. Bad Boy, Having a Party, that one's fun. Look at a couple more records. George Benson, Breezin'. George Benson is known for having that song, Gimme the Night. This is another one of my grandmother's records. And I gotta be honest, I haven't put this thing on in forever. Michael Jackson, Thriller. I'm not sure where my sleeve is right now. It's around here somewhere. We got some more Michael Jackson albums hanging around, but my son's really into Michael Jackson right now, so I think he wants to put together a little collection and look at that some other time. And this is a reach, but I don't know where else I'm going to put this, so here it is. Saturday Night Fever. The soundtrack from, what year was that? 1977. disco album. A big part of pop culture over the years. Probably one of the biggest albums ever. But I was surprised once, once I got this album and played it. I think I like most of the songs on here. So it's a really popular one for a good reason. What's my favorite one on here? More Than a Woman. That's a good one. So, that's it. See you next time.